Awesome. Welcome, you guys. This is Irene. I've been working one-on-one with her, since like February?
February.
February. Yeah, we sat in a coffee shop, we talked. Weird thing, and we were just talking about this before we went live, was I actually worked with Irene for like 5 years in my one-on-one personal training, back in my former employer. And I was kind of like, I didn't want to like full on say I'm sorry, but I was apologizing because like we're having more success in the last 6 months when it comes to like body composition change without me having any like hands-on quote unquote training going on. And one of the big shifts that we did with Irene, so she kind of came and she was kind of eating super clean. Like your diet alone was just extremely like healthy. And when I say that, it's like, we can get into details, but you were eating really well. You just weren't eating enough. You also weren't eating enough, carbohydrates to fuel the stress. So I'm not even going to go through Irene's last like calendar year of everything that she had to go through, but pretty much retired. A lot has happened. Houses, people, family, everything under the sun, and a little bit of hormonal replacement therapy. So that's when we first started talking. And what has happened in the past 6 months, we worked her calories up to an uncomfortable level where she thought she was actually stuffing herself. I'm like, cool, we're done. And then we put her into a deficit and now she's down 6 pounds. So obviously, and Irene didn't have a lot to lose. It's not like, she was 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight. She wasn't even overweight. She just wasn't happy with how her performance was going or how she like she looked in the mirror. And her efforts, which like, if you talk about someone's efforts, they were there. She like did all the strength training. She had a very strong base. She's a runner by nature. And we had a come to Jesus moment, whereas like, all right, well, unfortunately, like your running and your goals of being like more lean and toned just aren't the same right now. So we talked about the triangle of awareness. And what we did for the past 3 months then was go all in on aesthetics. So to get the goal to decrease fat mass, to look as good as possible, which I think you're doing great. We're in a calorie deficit right now for another couple of weeks. And then once we're done with that, we're actually going to change focuses and focus on performance so she can go run a half marathon in October. And I think that's one thing that she kind of mentioned. I should let you talk. That was one thing that she mentioned, right away. Oh, that was a little bit different compared to like, I just want to be healthier. I want to be super fit, and thinking like I need to do all these things to accomplish it, compared to like the protocol for performance looks different than the protocol for aesthetics. And the same thing, the protocol for like being healthy and happy, which is what you did first, was just like lifestyle optimization or like health or longevity. And that's actually what phase one looked like for you, is just getting as healthy as possible through the means of the reverse diet. So just curious, so far in the program, is it what you expected?
It is, because you told me up front what it was going to be, right? So
Yep.
it was what I expected, but I guess I didn't expect as much resistance on my part. I didn't realize how, it is difficult. I'm not going to kid you. Like, you're changing everything that you've ever done, and then everything you've ever done and what you thought was normal, and then changing it. Like, and I naturally progressed into this, like, oh, plant-based, and and I thought I was eating enough protein. I thought I was doing that. So everything that I ever did, over the last 10 years, really did, it put me in this negative place. Right. So I had to like change that mindset. So the hardest part was that changing that mindset. Now I understand, like, okay, protein's important, food's important, carbs are important. I got to eat the calories. Now I can feel the difference. So yeah, it's everything that you told me it was going to be, and I just didn't believe you. And I complained about it the whole entire time. No.
You did not complain about it the whole entire time. Just curious, after like kind of working your calories up and eating like that, what did you notice the most?
I had more energy. I could complete a workout without feeling fatigued. Yeah, I just had less fatigue. I had more energy. Really is it, and there was one time that I didn't eat enough. And it was sort of, I felt like I felt for like that whole year when I was eating like just plant-based and I thought I was eating enough. I literally went back to that feeling and it was like, oh, this is horrible. Like, I recognized like what I was doing. So that validated everything you said about having to have protein and, having to eat those calories. Like right then and there, I experienced it. And it was like, I don't want to go back to that. That was horrible.
So real quick, I always want to touch on like when people go plant-based 100%, and you're doing it like in a healthy way. So like, to be fair, when Irene was like plant-based, it wasn't like she was going towards like noodles and breads and pastas and like eating all the carbs like under the sun. She was like literally eating like plants and like I said, super clean, super healthy. And why this works for so many people initially is you literally just shut out all the things that were making or causing a lot of inflammation early. Also, you notice that like you were very low on calories. So like it's hard to eat enough. So that's why, your general advice, like, hey, if you're looking to lose 40 to 50 pounds, go jump on this plant-based diet. It's amazing. You're going to feel better. You're going to lose weight. Well, yeah, you're going to be in a huge calorie deficit and you're not eating any of the inflammatory foods. But what are you going to do until like you kind of like, I'm not going to say you hit rock bottom, but you just didn't have the energy that you wanted. Well, cool. Like if you live on a beach, Irene is retired, but if you're retired full-time, live on a beach, have zero stress in the world, you have no family issues, you have no relative issues, you have no work issues, you have no conflict of interest with friends or, situations, cool. That could be an amazing option. But if you exercise, if you move, if you, I don't know, have stressful conversations with a significant other, or if you're married, I guess I could just say that, right? Or have kids, right? Like the thought of just like going low carb blows my mind. Like just, and when I'm saying like carbs, I'm not saying like Irene just went to eating a bunch of donuts and pizza or what most people and cookies, what most people like affiliate with carbs. I'm talking about like rice and potatoes and sweet potatoes and beans and lentils and like things that are just higher in carbs. So she stayed super clean eating it. She just ate more of those things. She also like prioritized protein at each meal. Her ability to recover got better. So super happy with that. But I was like, same thing as like intermittent fasting. People are like, I love intermittent fasting. I'm like, cool, you're just eating less food and you feel good about it because you're eating less food than you were before, until your body adapts to that point. And I think that was one thing that you touched on. If you want to touch on, like, that was something that you didn't really expect, was like the shift of goals. Do you want to kind of talk about that real quick?
Sure. It was really difficult for me to narrow in on what my goals were. Well, I want to look better, but I want to perform better, but I want to feel better. I want to, like, okay, I want. And it's really hard because I had a period of time before I met Ryan where I was super fit. I was 39 years old, 39 to probably 40-ish, 42. That's probably when I first met Ryan. And I was eating, interestingly enough, I was eating the same way that I'm eating right now. And I commented on them, and I didn't keep track of my calories back then. I didn't keep track of any of that. They didn't have that, 12 years ago, these things weren't as readily available.
You used to have books. You remember the books, the calorie books? Like you'd actually look up like an index of what the food was, like, oh, that's it, and who knows if that was accurate.
Right. Yeah. And I did this intuitively and it worked, and it worked for a while. Right. But like, as your body changes, as you change, I didn't change. Right. So then it was unsustainable. Or I changed my diet just a little bit, but then I didn't change my workout. So that's kind of where Ryan and I got to, like, here I am, change my diet a little bit. I'm doing the same workouts all the time and not changing things up, not necessarily looking at like, oh, well, I'm training for this half marathon, I should increase my calories. Like, I didn't know any of that. So I then it's like, okay, where are my goals? Well, then it was just like, okay, now I'm just trying to survive, right? I'm just trying to make it through the day and I feel pretty good. And, my weight would kind of fluctuate a little bit, but I didn't fluctuate that much. And honestly, I didn't fluctuate that much until COVID happened, right? And then I went up. And then it was then like, okay, I got to change my diet. So I did the whole Weight Watchers thing. Well, what does that do? Nothing. It just cut my calories, right? And it made me kind of be more aware. But again, it didn't say, hey, you should have this much protein, or hey, you should have, it didn't do that, right? It was just count the points. Well, okay, if I keep under those points, but I noticed there that I wasn't getting enough protein and I wasn't able to lose, right? So as far as the goals, get back to that. Yeah, my goals, the shift of the idea, the whole mentality of, I have to change things on a cycle, right? So I can't have the same goal every moment of every waking day, and I have to change it. So maybe my goal for the summertime is that I look good, right? And I feel good. Maybe my goal then for exercise for running is, I always run like a fall and I run like a spring run, right? So maybe that's when I focus on that. So just the idea that, hey, I am supposed to be shifting. I am supposed to be changing my goals. And that's just something that I didn't think about. And until this program, until, you pointed it out to me. And it was difficult. I fought it. I was like, And every day you'd ask that question, or every week. And I'm like, what's your goal? And I'd be like, typing it in, but yeah.
Same
So
thing.
yes.
I love that. So just curious, what was like the deciding moment that made you want to go like all in and like work on this transformation?
I had the changing of, it was, quite frankly, the cost of personal training was going up. I wasn't seeing the benefit of my personal training. I was noticing hormone issues, like I entered menopause and, was looking for like a quick fix there. Like, how do I do that? Right. So then it was like, after speaking with, we met for coffee and we were, talking about it, and it was talking about protein and diet. And then I just recognized, like, look, I have this huge transition that's happening. I'm retiring. I'm possibly finding a new trainer or finding something out. And it just sort of all kind of fell into place. And then the idea of knowing that, hey, what I've been doing isn't working. I need to try something else. So that's what really coming to that realization that, with all my knowledge and all my past, it's not working. And I need maybe something I need a different outside motivator. Going to the gym is great, having a trainer to meet with you and you have this built in, but when it has to be something that you're doing on your own, I think it has more value. So for me, it gave me, I guess, more ownership, more agency, I guess, then it's mine and I am responsible for it. So.
Oh man,
That's a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the biggest takeaway that I can make from that is like what you were doing just wasn't working.
Right.
And
Yep.
like, I didn't want you to keep banging your head against the wall, like doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think that's like one of the hardest things in the world. And I think that's where I struggled with the most, is because like I was leaning on a degree in kinesiology for 10 years. Like I was going to all these seminars and continuing education, and they're like, oh, if you want to like lose weight and feel great doing it, like no one was talking about like fueling for it. They're always like, supplements. Like you're just missing this one supplement. This will like change your life. Oh my gosh, liquid collagen's amazing. Like this powder, this like, Garcinia cambogia, this fat burner or whatever, like, and then it got into like, the whole semaglutide and everything like that that's going on now in prescriptions. But I think like what really frustrated me is like, I worked my ass off pretty consistently. Like I swear to this date, mostly because I sweat a lot, I have poured more sweat into workouts than most people over a decade to never be happy in my skin. Like literally, like an hour a day, 5 to 6 days a week, working super hard, like never really focusing on getting stronger, just like calories, burn calories. And like, that's what everybody always tells. Oh yeah, like that's a great workout. It burned 500 calories or 700 calories compared to like, I threw away my fitness tracker and I've actually lost more fat than I've ever done before. Like I used to be like the MyZone guy. Like I would have that work thing on everything. And people are like, oh my God, how do you hang out in like the 99% for so long? That's amazing. I'm like, because I just want it, like that motivational thing, until like, I just like, well, I'm burning so many fucking calories because I'm fat right now and I'm dying.
Right.
And like, I kept on trying to do more and more and more of that, like, more time cardio, more time, like, strength endurance, switch up workouts. That it just never works. So I guess like my biggest frustration is for people to continue with that when I did it for so long and didn't really see the results until like phase programming, like just laid out, show up, do this kind of work. It's not as intense as you think it has to be. Like cardio should be just something that you just do because you enjoy like running or biking or cycling, not like to burn calories. And right now, if like you get anything out of this video, is if you are calories in, calories out focused, you are missing the picture so far. And even though that worked when you're in your 20s, it's not going to work when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, just because like it's a losing battle. Your body gets super efficient. Unless you're looking to like start, then calories are cool to start. But if you've been in this journey for more than, I don't know, 6 months, I'd make that shift. So for you, why did you work with us specifically, or me specifically?
Well, I think your prior my prior working with you. So I knew you, I knew your work ethic, you know, and I knew that you could address two things, you know, one, my diet, how I was feeling. And then I knew that you could also give me workouts that, you know, that would be difficult, would be hard, would be challenging. So you know, you kind of fit both bills, you know, like, of what I needed at the time.
Hmm. Cool. Super short. I love it. But I mean, like, I always think it's, you know, I'm not even gonna go into it. It is, it's everything. Like there's some people, so like what Irene needed was like direction, accountability, and like more in line, like just specifics. Like, hey, you should eat 120 grams of protein, right? Like you're working hard. You need to increase your carbohydrates like at each meal, like kind of thing. And like figured out ways to do that. I knew she was going to do the workouts. I also knew that she had like really good technique and form because, you know, she always had really good technique and form. So, but like there's some people in the program that don't. So we do form checks all the time. Like it's whatever you need. Um, and ironically, like we talked a lot about like that mindset of figuring out what goals. Some people, it's a mindset of just like, hey, like I just need to say no to this shit more often and yes to like the stuff that's going to make me healthier. And like we didn't have to do that with Irene really. Like she kind of already did that work. So I guess like everybody's like on a different journey, but
Well, I think it's about awareness. And I think you don't realize. So like for me, it's the opposite. Like I naturally went plant-based, not on purpose. It's just something we did in my household. And I love the way plants make me feel. I love, and it's not like I wasn't eating meat. I was just eating lean meat, right? And I wasn't, and it just, you know, like my son came home from college and we were having like kale nachos. And he's like, where's the meat? But he was like, but the kale nachos are really good, right? Like, so it just, I sort of fell into that without being aware of what was going on. And I think at the same time, I could overeat and eat junk food and not be aware. So I think it's like, so if anything the program brings you is this awareness of like what's reality and what isn't. Like,
yeah,
you know, how much time can you eat a donut and go like, oh, it's fine, or even eating like, you know, a muffin or things like that, you know, and it's like that just adds up. And the same thing with the whole with me and the plant-based thing, it was like that just added up. The next thing you know, I'm not eating anything. And I was like, oh, whoa, what's going on? So I don't know. That's the thing is like, I think it brought about this new awareness. And this, and you know, for me, I feel bad because it was this awareness that I had when I was 39 and 40. And I don't know what happened. I guess you just get dumber between 40 and 50.
No, you get told more information and then you're like kind of deciphering what compared to like what you know worked in the past, you're like maybe this new way is better. And it's just that information overload. I think that's where I suffered the most. That's what's super common with most people. The thing that I love about the awareness right now, so Kayla is actually working with our assistant coach, Kaylee. So my wife, Kayla, and she's just like, what do you think of this? Or she's asking questions about it. I'm like, how do you feel? Like for some people, like cheese is great. It's a great source of protein. Like it's super easy to digestible if you can. Some people, it makes you feel like shit. Like sometimes it's ice cream compared to like whey protein. It's different, you know? But like, if you have that awareness where I'm like, all right, after every meal, take 5 seconds to be like, how do I feel? 2 hours after that meal, how do I feel? And it's kind of annoying to start, but like, I just watched a video with Jordan Syatt and he's doing this experiment where he is intentionally spiking his blood sugar every day and he's losing weight doing it. He's like, all right, it's not the insulin, it's not the blood sugar spikes that are bad. And he's just like, but he had like a Frappuccino or something from Starbucks and it did not spike his blood sugar that bad, but he ate like 4 pounds of watermelon or something crazy. But like that watermelon did spike his blood sugar, but then he felt great afterwards. So he had the Frappuccino that didn't spike his blood sugar, felt like shit, ate the watermelon, spiked the blood sugar, felt amazing. And he's just like, so you're telling me I should have more Frappuccinos and less watermelon? You're fucking nuts. Right. So, yeah.
I think
so
it's huge. It's huge because like I noticed too, like if I didn't, like I had roasted vegetables and beets and things like that last night and it made me feel great. And so when I was doing, you know, monitoring my carbs and everything else, it's like, okay, I got to figure out like what's more important to me. Do I really want to have those pretzels or do I really want to feel really good, you know, eating the vegetables and adding those kind of carbs? Do you know what I mean? So I had to really recognize like, okay, what's the give and take here? Right. And then, you know, I found I can do both, right? I don't have to just limit one or the other, but I found out like, you know, hey, it's really important that I have roasted vegetables because I like those. They make me feel good. So Yeah.
One thing that I like, here's a little free one for everybody. At the end of the day, if you are tracking calories and you have a goal to hit and you want to hit that goal, apples, peanut butter, and pretzels are like the easiest way to manipulate your if you're focused on macros or like protein. So say you're a little bit short on protein or fats, peanut butter. If you're like shorter on protein than fats, like go get like PB2 and throw it in the mix, and gives you more protein. Or like right now I'm obsessed with these dried mangoes from Costco. Like but the cool thing is I can go chug some salt water and eat like a handful of those mangoes like 30 to 40 minutes before my workout. My workouts, I feel so amazing. I like it's super easy to digest. It's super simple, like quick blood sugar spike. Feel really good about it. Also, like at the end of the day, I'm like short of my carbs. Like it's 140 calories, and I think it's 23 grams of carbs and like no protein, no fat. So if I'm short, I'm like, sweet, I just munch on these, and then I can fall asleep super easily because it's not hard to digest. So like you find these like really quick or these quote unquote hacks for you, like what fit your like what did you become aware to like, all right, I'm sleeping better now, I'm feeling better in my skin, I'm focused, my workouts are better. Like when we get into talking about your marathon training or sorry, half marathon training, we're going to talk about food timing and like making sure everything is ideal and like optimal, not just like, I don't know, like I'm hitting my calories throughout the day. Like, well, let's do it like 2 hours before. Let's do a refeed like this, like a refuel, and like dial in those specifics. And like, if you've never done that, that's a game changer when it talks about like you're training for something. So one last question, I don't want to go too long, is if you had one piece of advice for anyone thinking about working with us or thinking about changing their health journey, what is something that you would advise them?
Well, I would just ask them, first of all, if they're on the fence, be like, well, what's the downside? Like, what's the downside of trying it? Right. You might change, you might learn something. And then I think, you know, to be open to be surprised. Right. Like here's just an example of what Ryan taught me. I used to say, oh, I cheated. I had a spoon of peanut butter. And he'd be like, that's not a cheat. Right. Like you need that. Like that's actually good. So, or I'm eating all this like dark chocolate or something. That's not a cheat. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess it's just, be surprised, or just be aware that your mindset's going to change and be open for that. Right. I think it's a new experience. And I think that, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised if they try it. I think they'll want to, they'll want to keep going. It's just that simple. You feel good enough.
I love that. Thank you so much, Irene. On that cheat thing, my gosh, that is like one of the biggest things that screwed up my mentality for like 4 or 5 years. Because again, like when I lost a lot of weight one time, I had a meal plan. It was amazing. Like I literally breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, steak, chicken, fish, like it was done to a T, except I was eating out of fucking Tupperware all the time. But then every Saturday was a cheat meal. So like Kayla and I, we would literally like, all right, like I want like this for breakfast. I want some like French toast. And like I was like looking like the Rock, like eating like the Rock on his cheat meals. Like let's have pizza for lunch. I want nachos for dinner. And I felt like shit. But I was like, I needed all of those calories because during the week I was eating so clean and so restricted and like didn't have anything that I wanted. Like I said, like when you felt bad about a tablespoon of peanut butter, I felt bad about literally looking at anything that I would potentially enjoy. And I just had this terrible relationship with like, all right, I'm either in or I'm out. And I'm like, oh, that all or nothing principle thing mindset. So like when you touch on that, and it's funny because when you were saying like a tablespoon of peanut butter, I'm like, okay. Like I have a tablespoon of peanut butter like a couple times a day sometimes, like especially when I'm super busy. And like if I just need calories, there's nothing better than an apple and peanut butter. Super simple, super quick. You could get like 200-300 calorie snack that gives you energy like that. And if you start kind of reframing, like you said, your mindset around it, you look forward to those things. So like where I used to feel like I was missing out on everything, like, all right, well, how can I make ice cream work this week? And like, it sounds weird, but like, man, what ice cream is predominantly like fat and carbs. If I have a really lean breakfast and lunch, like I need ice cream to hit my goals. And then when you do that, like you feel good if you can digest ice cream. I can't. So never good
Well,
for
and
me.
that's what I did when I went on vacation a couple times. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what, I mean, I'm going to go out to eat, and whatever my idea of what these calories are is going to be underreported because it's not in there. So, and they
Mhm.
use so much fat in a restaurant. So it's like, yeah, you can just change, what you're going to have for breakfast, or or what you're going to have for lunch, knowing that you're going to go do that. And then sometimes even if you can't, and it's a surprise, like, hey, let's walk down to Inventors and have a burger. All right, you know what? I worked hard enough this week. I'm okay with that. I just don't
Yeah.
have to have the bun. I just don't have to have, change it up
One
that way.
one thing on that I love is that you actually have to just change maybe your goal. And I think what people do either too often is they change their goal too often, where they never give it enough time to go for something. So it's like, I did really good Monday through Friday. My goal on the weekend is just to maintain. So like, I'm doing this cut during the week and there's maintenance on the weekend, and it's just a cycle of like never really seeing progress. Or like, but what Irene did, like, you had a focus and a goal like day to day. Some people like do it week to week, some people do it month to month. What I personally do is like, I have to be in a deficit and focused on it for a 4 to 8 week period. This is how my body responds. Typically the first 3 weeks do nothing, and then the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh week I'm like losing 1 to 2 pounds per week. That's just kind of like how my body responds, and I didn't know that until I went through it, actually multiple times. But what I do is like, for Thanksgiving, my goals for Thanksgiving change. Like, you give yourself permission. I think that's what you're talking about. Like, you just give yourself permission to quote unquote figure it out and be okay in that moment. And then when you stop feeling like you failed, or you cheated, or you did something bad, or like you're getting in trouble and you should have this shame around this cheeseburger or whatever, like, you don't have that. And then when you don't have that negative relationship with it, now things can really start, like, firing on all cylinders, because you're just getting rid of all that shame. And like, and it comes from some weird place through diet culture, through, I don't know if you can speak on that at all. Like, where do you think this guilt or shame kind of came from when it came to like eating the peanut butter?
I think it's like where you pointed out the all or nothing thinking, like, oh, now I blew it. So now I have the case of the F it. So now I'm just going to blow the whole thing. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, okay, yeah, it was one thing. I'm going to cut myself some slack. How do you feel? I guess the whole thing of their awareness of checking in and how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
If I ate poorly 2 days in a row, I gotta be mindful of that. And then I know that I can just get right back on right back on track. And it's not gonna be like, oh, I screwed up 2 days. Now I just lost all 30 days. It doesn't work that way. Right. Like, I know that
Yeah.
I can just flow right back in and seamlessly. And, I don't know, the guilt or the shame. I don't know. I think it's just our own idea
Yeah.
of who, our idea in our head of what we think, how we think things should be, rather than living in reality. If I can say I want to be on this cut so I could be in a bikini, but that's not real, right? Like, I'm 52 years old. I'm not necessarily going to look great in a bikini. I'm not going to look like I did when I was 39. But I do know it's only been so many weeks. And guess what? I'm building on something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's not going to be this October. Maybe it'll be in, 6 months from there. That's okay. I'm building on something. And I know that. So I have to keep that in perspective. So.
Well, perfect. I think you covered all the basics. Again, just super excited for you, just because like that mindset shift of having like the growth mindset compared to like a fixed mindset of exactly what you think you have to do, is, I think, worth its weight in gold, and having the ability to like create that awareness around where you're at. And like, what I think you're kind of tying into is, well, when you have all things like working, if you've lived at maintenance, like you ate enough calories, you're actually feeding yourself with carbs and protein and like healthy, nutrient dense foods, often you feel amazing. When you don't do that, you just don't feel as amazing.
Right.
So instead of like, I'm doing this to lose weight, I'm doing this to like literally be the best version of myself, like be the most energetic, most like charismatic, but like badass motherfucker out there. Right. When I do that, I can be that person. When I don't do that, I'm tired. I'm like, I'm not feeling it. Like when I'm always eating out, or if I'm always eating like the fries or whatever, I'm not getting my vegetables, I'm not hitting my fiber, like my bowel movements. I'm spending too much time in the bathroom. Like, I'm missing out on like my kids' life because like I'm so tired at 7 o'clock or whatever that I can't even play with them. Like, that's like reasons that I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I like eating better or more nutrient dense foods more often to fuel myself so I can show up day to day. And like right now, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm in just like this valley where Lincoln just wakes up in the middle of the night and he just wants to like snuggle and talk. And he's wide awake. And so like, I'm not saying it's perfect, but also like, I know if I'm crushing donuts every day, or like the muffins, or like, eating a lot of greasy foods or like high fat foods, and I'm over on my calories, like I'll feel less than ideal.
Right.
And that's not fair to, me. I don't think it's fair to my family. And I think that's also, like hopefully what you're getting out of this, like you can just thrive more, like through eating and actually fueling your body, your workouts are better. Like you said, like you felt tired or lethargic after your workouts. Well, if you don't feel that and you're still getting the workout in, you're probably putting a little bit more effort into the workout, put a little more effort into the workout. Well, that's a potential for change and adaptation to your muscles like better, like, and then you cascade, right? Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I just think just being aware all the time of what you're feeling, what you're saying, what you're thinking, your negative thoughts, and just checking in, like even after workouts, and being honest with yourself, like, am I honestly trying this program? Am I honestly working as hard as I can, or am I just calling it in? Some days we call it in. Some days I don't
Yeah.
work as, I'm feeling a little tired. I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but I am going to take a look at what did I do during the day or the last 2 days? What didn't I eat? Why didn't I show up? And I think it's just really checking in with yourself. I think we owe it to our family members. I think we owe it to our friends, how we show up. I mean, I've shown up, much better the last 3, 4, 5 months than I have probably a year before that. So I feel good. I feel great. So
Cool. Proud of you. Excited to keep going.
thank you.
All right. Bye, Irene. Thank you.